So what's happening during my MILABS experiences, it's a little different. I find them transferring my consciousness. I'm going to go back actually. So there was a period before I spoke to Penny Shepherd that I came across this woman. Her name, I believe, is Elisa or Elsa or Elisa, and she was on the Journey to Truth podcast. And by now, I'm trying to figure out what is happening to me. Something very strange is happening to me. And I haven't heard anybody else talking about it. And although now I'm sure there are others talking about it. I come across a podcast, Journeys to Truth. She starts talking. Before she even comes on the screen, or right when she comes on the screen, my entire body starts vibrating. And the vibrating to me is a sign that they're coming. Like they vibrate my body, and then, and I'm paralyzed, and here we go. My body starts vibrating. My vision actually goes completely white, like it whited out, like an old TV station channel, when there was no program on. Completely white, my vision. And I'm thinking, what is happening? I actually stopped the video and I had to recover myself. Like, what is happening right now? And some interesting things end up happening where the video wouldn't play, all these stuff. And I end up watching this video, and this woman explains exactly what's happening to me. And I'm now going, what the hell? Okay, this is happening to other people. It's not just me. This is not, some strange branch of abductions that's happening to only me. It's happening to other people. And she starts discussing about how our military industrial complex, and so much of this is private corporations, have the technology to take our astral bodies, our consciousness out of our bodies, and to put it into other bodies. And things happen during these times. You've heard someone, I don't know if you've heard of, there's a guy named Marshall somebody, and I can't remember his entire name, but he speaks about this a lot. He speaks about going into an arena and, gosh, it'll come to me.
Donald Marshall?
What's his name?
Is it Donald Marshall by chance?
That's him. She starts talking about him and how they transfer his body, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I don't know who this person is, but this is exactly what they do to me. Now, I don't end up in his circumstances. He has some really interesting circumstances he ends up in. I've not ended up in those circumstances. But she starts talking about how they can transfer your soul, your astral body out of your body and put it in another body. And this is what's been happening to me. And I know this is what's happening to me. I know that I am not in my body. I know I'm in someone else's body. And when this is happening, what ends up happening a lot of times is I'm on some kind of a mission, and there's something I must accomplish while I'm in this body. And a lot of it, I'll shorten it up, has to do with spying, smuggling, and eliminating targets, eliminating other targets. And when I'm talking to, so this has happened with Elisa. This had happened, I don't know, it could have been a month or 2 months before I could check my journal. And now I'm talking to Penny Shepherd. And Penny Shepherd is telling me they have this technology. This is what they do. And I explained to her, okay, now that she's told me all this, because I'm not going to give up my stuff first, of course, we end up talking. And I end up saying, can they do this? And she says, oh yeah. And I said, this is what I've been doing. This is what's happening. I'm in other people's bodies, and this is what I'm doing. She says, oh yeah, this is what happens. Cause she's now talked to, multiple other people as well. And I have now talked to, I think I've come across maybe 3 other people this is happening to, where the consciousness is transferred into another body and there are missions involved. This could go down an entire super soldier, conspiracy rabbit hole. Most people in the UFO community will laugh about this and discount it and say that this is absolute nonsense. I'm telling you, either it's happening to me or somebody is spending a lot of money, resources, and effort to make me believe it's happening. So that's where I'm at with it. I have not come across anyone else other than Penny who is called by a number. And and I would love any of your listeners, any of your past guests, anybody who might have any information on any program that this might be related to, that might ring any bells with anybody. In the last incident, and they said to me, this is how it was always going to end. And they called me 18 and they said, this is how it was always going to end. And during this last incident, I knew this had been happening my entire life. It was a very matter-of-fact situation. There were other people in the room who were also being called by a number. That's the only thing they referred to as a number. By the way, the aliens don't call me anything. They don't call me a name. They don't call me a number. They don't call me anything. Everything is just known. Everything is just known. So that's where I'm at with that. I would love to have any help your audience might have. Do people do this all the time? I am incredibly aware of how insane it sounds. But this is what's happening. And hey, it's happening. I'm talking about it, and I'd love to have any help that I could
and
have.
so it's very much like that. And I think that's why there's a lot of confusion. It took me a while to realize I had 2 or 3 different things going on with different creatures, maybe with different modus operandi. It's just, and it can be very confusing. But that's the thing that people will not, and these people in ufology, no matter how many times they are told, this is spiritual warfare, this has to do with the ultimate destiny of the human soul. That's it. That's the game. That's what they're here for. Well, what does an alien have to do with the destiny of a human soul? Well, I don't know. Why are they taking my soul out of my body? What are they doing? Why are they threatening insiders? These so-called high-level insiders will go to their deathbed before they will give up information, because they are being told that these so-called aliens have control over the afterlife. And I can tell you, I have witnessed part of this process myself. And so it's downright frightening. And this is what just ripped my whole worldview out from under me when I realized that these creatures abducting me out of my body, able to transfer my soul, also working on this hybrid breeding program. What does all of this have to do one with the other? It just, it almost killed me when I just went, what the ever-loving hell is going on in this world right now? I was not prepared, for everything I saw and everything I went through.
Yeah, man, I can imagine. So you kind of mentioned here a little bit ago about the hybrids to usurp humanity. I'm tracking with you. I would like for you to maybe go into that a little bit more as far as your perspective as to how that unfolds, why, just in general, go into it more, because that was a statement I think the audience, it might have caught their ear, and would like for you to maybe go into detail a little bit more on that angle of things.
Yeah, sure. So again, this is happening over a period of a couple of years, and maybe about this time last year, October or so of 2022, I'm really putting this all together, and I'm realizing, oh my gosh, what's actually happening and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just almost absorbing information, because I can't say the aliens told me. You're going to hear abductees. You probably already have. I don't know how many abductees you've talked to, or if or who's been on your show. Has
Healthy
it been
amount.
a lot?
Yeah, there's been a healthy amount.
A
Yeah.
lot. Okay. So you're going to have abductees telling you, oh, they told me this or they told me that. That does not happen with me. I have just been in their environment so many times. And I say everything they do is a double-edged sword. They took me so many times that all I had to do was start paying attention. And it's a very telepathic environment. And part of what I was being tested and trained for was to actually conceal my own thoughts and intentions from them. I was actually being trained for that and tested for it. And so, being in a telepathic environment, they're trying to hide themselves from me as well. And just being there too many times and really started paying attention, I'm now absorbing this stuff. They have never told me this. So I end up coming out March or April with my own ideas on what was going on. I start coming across the abduction research in about March or April of last year. And I think the very first thing I read was by Carla Turner, and it was called Masquerade of Angels. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the abductee, Ted Rice, but he's fantastic. He's in his 80s now. I start reading this story, and I'm basically reading my life. Everything that was happening to me, I'm now reading in this story. And he's going down to some descriptions of things that happened to me that you cannot know unless you've seen it or unless you've been there. And so I start reading the abduction research, and I start realizing, oh my gosh, these people are saying the exact same thing of these conclusions that I have already come to. And so most abductees, and not all, but most of the abductees have used hypnotic regression to recover memories, because many abductees were given these screen memories. It's something like 85% of abductees return with the thinking that they're on a spiritual journey and that this is maybe a good thing, and we're just helping them with their genetics and all this kind of stuff. They feed, maybe a dozen different, it's propaganda stories to abductees as to why they're doing what they're doing, and why they're doing it in secret, by the way. And so much of the abductee research from Carla Turner and David Jacobs has been done on abductees who have received hypnotic regression. I have never retrieved a memory through hypnotic regression. So when I'm talking about any of my experiences, I wake up and there I am. Sometimes I'm having, maybe a 50 to 75% degree of consciousness, and it can go up to 100%. And by the way, it's not like a dream. It's much more like being under anesthesia. And so I'm going to write this down so I don't forget where I was actually going down this rabbit hole. So they're using mind control, and it's got to be the same portion of the brain that anesthesia targets, because it's very similar. So the way it feels is, if, let's just say that you're going to get a tooth pulled, and if you've ever had maybe a Valium or something to go for some type of daytime surgery, they want to give you something to kind of calm you down while you're walking in. They might give you a Valium or a Xanax or something. So you can be walking into the dentist office with just under a little bit of haze. You're going to get a tooth pulled. You really don't want to be there. You don't want to get a tooth pulled, but you have to do it because it's for your own good. And so you get into the dentist chair, and they probably load you up with a greater amount of anesthesia. And then imagine that anesthesia just running through you maybe a little bit too quick, or they didn't give you quite enough, and you actually wake up with the dentist pulling your tooth. That's pretty much how it goes for me. And interestingly enough, there's going to end up being a correlation between people who run through anesthesia very quickly, because I do in 3D real life, I run through anesthesia very quickly, and people who are able to wake up and kind of break out of their mind control. And so it's very similar. It's not like a dream. And a lot of people will report things like dreams because there's no other language for it. And when I'm not 100% conscious, it can feel very much like I've taken a Valium and I'm walking to the dentist chair. And so abductees in general are filled with screen memories, and they're filled just with things that didn't actually happen. And so many abductees have gone for hypnotic regression. There is some controversy over this. If you don't have the right regressionist, they can fill you with all kinds of nonsense that maybe didn't actually happen. So it's very controversial, and it's why I've never done it. However, it's very important to note that when I started reading the abduction research, what they were saying was matching up with what I had already kind of come to my own loosely held conclusions, because I'm not sure there's 100% in this field. And so what the aliens, the so-called aliens, are telling abductees, and these, again, memories are covered almost always under hypnotic regression, is that these hybrids are being made to replace us, Homo sapiens sapiens. They're going to replace us. And I'm going to tell you my own conclusions. So my own conclusions during this time is that they were trying to find a combination of gray alien and human DNA that can still be telepathically controlled, because they're all kind of hooked up into this hive mind control system. You can't have your own independent thought. It's very difficult for them to hide any thoughts from each other. It's almost like an AI computer system or something. And so they're looking for the combination of human and gray alien. And in my opinion, they're looking for the combination that can still house a human soul. And so this is a very delicate process. It has taken many, many years. In the very beginning of this process, they were not very successful. The young were not thriving. They were not making it. And so it has taken decades. People like to ask me, well, if they wanted to take us over, they would have done it a long time ago. Well, no, they wouldn't have, because they couldn't. But that's what they're working toward. And so the whole idea is to replace almost all humans, the majority of humans, with hybrids. And these hybrids are much more easily controlled than we are. And they're basically breeding out the human spirit, love, empathy, our desires for freedom, our desire for autonomy, our desire for God. They're breeding that out. And so imagine how long it would take and how many times it would take to find these exact perfect genetic matches to get what they want. And what they want, it almost seems like, okay, I'm just going to tell you what I think they're doing. I'll spit it out. So what I think they're doing is, I think they're trying to trap the human soul inside these hybrid bodies. And so if you believe in reincarnation, that might be one thing. If you don't believe in reincarnation, it doesn't really matter. Our souls come from somewhere, and they are put into our bodies. And the soul has to genetically match the body. I don't understand the science behind that, but it's what I've had researchers tell me this. There has to be a genetic match between the soul and the physical body. And so if they can develop a hybrid that has enough human DNA that can still seat the human soul, but yet still be controlled, 100% controlled by them, they have developed an ultimate soul trap, because that soul will never search for God. It will never feel love. It will never have human empathy. Because look, people like to talk about humans, right? We are capable of absolute atrocity, but we are also capable of great love. I mean, think about the humans out there who would give up their very last meal or their last shirt. The people out there will give up their last meal for a dog, let alone a fellow human being. Well, these aliens, that's not them at all. And so they're very hive-minded. When you get up to the mantid level, they're sociopathic. And so this is what I think they're doing. This is what I think they're looking for. I think it's very dark. I think they want to trap the human soul inside these hybrid bodies. And so I'm rambling again, but I start coming across the abductee research, and I realize, oh my gosh, they're telling abductees what they're doing. And they're telling abductees that they want hybrids on the planet. By the way, abductees are actually favored above humans. There's a little hierarchy there. You have the gray, you have the mantid, reptilian, the gray, and then you have abductees. And then you have humans, and humans are the very last on the totem pole. They don't care about humans. The only thing they care about humans is as a breeding stock in case anything goes wrong with this hybrid breeding program. They're going to keep a select amount of humans around, and if you're lucky, you have the right genetics, that's fantastic. And if you're not, you're not.
That goes into the depopulation idea then too.
Oh, it's all the same agenda, Tony.
Yeah.
It's all the same agenda. So if you want to look, if you really want to go down the conspiracies, the aliens are the physical component of what's dealing with us. But behind the aliens are these hyperdimensional beings. And they're running the whole show from behind the scenes. And they actually work through us as human beings. They don't just show up in the physical universe and say, okay, I'm going to depopulate. No, they work through us. They work through us as humans. It's almost like the devil and the angel on your shoulder, the old cartoons. There would be an angel over here and a devil over here. And the devil gets you to do what it wants. And so they work through us. It's all the same agenda. It's the depopulation agenda. It's the whole one world order agenda. It's their agenda. And this is what they're pushing for. Yeah, I don't know where you want to go from there.
No, it's fine. So you mentioned you mentioned about the souls needing to match the body, and I find that interesting too, because it would lead to the idea that we are there. There isn't like this human being factory that God has in some far off realm, that he just grabs a body, the generic body, and he's like, take this soul, slap it in there, ship it off, keep it going. Like, it's uniquely and wonderfully made in the image of God. And because it's uniquely and wonderfully made in the image of God, they're trying to match that uniqueness so it marries properly. That's what it sounds like you were saying to me.
Yeah, so these are not creative beings. They need us for that. I don't think they can just create something on their own. I think all they can do is this genetic manipulation to try to get God's creation and to try to trap our souls. So yeah, that does make sense. In about October 2022, I had never believed in reincarnation. And I am still in the camp that it might be a deception. But I'm also thinking it could also be. I think there is a lot of evidence for it. And so I can spend 2 or 3 minutes there, maybe. So let's just say reincarnation is real, and they still have the same goal. They have the goal of trapping the human soul. And so, if reincarnation is real, and they send us into these matching bodies, you have to have a genetic match for your soul. You get sent into the body, and you live your life. And basically, we're just trying to pay our bills and get our kids to school, right? We're not really paying attention to what's happening. We're not waking up and realizing we're living in a clown show right now, because we are busy trying to just live our lives. And so we die. If you've ever looked into any near-death experiences, you might start noticing an overlap between the abduction experience and the near-death experience. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And I do want to say these beings are very manipulative, and they lie. And so I'm 100% open to this whole reincarnation thing being a complete manipulation. I'm also open to the possibility of it being true in some cases, maybe not all cases. So if you see the overlap between the white light and the beings, some people have even seen grays during a near-death experience. Many abductees, I don't know what the percentage is, have had a near-death experience and are also abductees. So if you just follow that through, I can look at all the tricks they have pulled on me, trying to get me to see something that wasn't there. If you go to a near-death experience and they're appearing, people have been asked, what do you want me to appear as? What makes you comfortable? And then they'll appear as your dead grandmother or, Jesus. And they walk you through the tunnel and they get you to your life review. And then they some people, they send back for a near-death experience, or they're being sent back. They're being told they haven't quite completed their mission and they're being sent back. But if you're not sent back, what happens? Well, people have pre-birth memories as well. And they go through this life review and then they're told they have to do it again because, they did this wrong or that wrong. And so they need to go back and they can do better next time. And they get sent back again. And so I'm not sure that is how the process is supposed to go. But if these things manipulate us in our everyday 3D life, what makes us think they cannot manipulate us in the afterlife? The abduction experience and the near-death experience are very similar. I have seen part of what I think could be the reincarnation process. And again, You probably don't believe in reincarnation. I didn't even entertain it as a possibility until October of last year. And again, I'm still open to it being a deception. But if they just have us circling around life after life, just trying to pay the bills, kind of living in the matrix system, and they can keep us distracted enough, I'll just start thinking out loud. Could it be, because I believe faith is physics. I think faith actually opens a door of physics that gets us out of here, gets us out of this system. And so I'm kind of going to be going into a little bit of the Gnostic belief, which I don't buy into all of it 100%. But how many lifetimes could you maybe go around before you fall into this faith and you really open your eyes and you start realizing there's something more here, and perhaps start believing in God, and then go down the road of Christianity, and maybe you're funneled into some other religions. And if faith can set us free, well, they certainly don't want any of that, right? They don't want faith if that can set us free. And so do people get multiple chances around? I don't know. I hope they do. You know what? I hope there's reincarnation. I hope people get more than one chance to go around and to really wake up and realize, wait a minute, there's more going on in this world than what it appears. So that in itself is a soul trap, right? So they take the human soul, and if they're able to maybe hijack a bit of this process, they might not be in charge of this whole thing. But if people have seen grays during near-death experiences, that's something that should open our eyes, and we should stop and say, wait a minute, what's going on? We need to at least look at this. If they can hijack us and keep us going around in this system, they've now kind of trapped a soul. And hopefully they can keep it from waking up into coming to faith and creating this bridge of physics. So if they are now able to create this hybrid that, I don't know, could they live a couple hundred years? They've now really circumvented that process, and they've made it a lot easier on themselves. So now they get the soul into a body that's not even capable of faith. It's not even capable of searching for God. It can't. It's impossible. I'm not saying God can't light a fire in that person by any means, but through the natural process, it's going to become impossible. And now they've lengthened our lives. They put us into these biological robot type beings that are living longer. And so to me, the entirety of their agenda is the soul trap. And so I'm always looking for how they're carrying it out. And I think reincarnation is a way. Again, it might be a deception. And this is another way of them trapping the human soul into these hybrid bodies. And I'll tell you what I saw during an abduction. And I've also received, I call them just concept pods. You might hear abductees call it a download. I've received just giant blocks of information. It's almost like a Dropbox of information, just plops right into my brain. At the moment that I receive the information, I am at 100% clarity, and it's like a light bulb, and I go, oh my gosh, this is exactly, now I understand. And then I have to kind of process the information and kind of try to put it into words. But I've also received these Dropbox downloads on this information. Anytime I receive something like that, it could be a lie. It could be misinformation, disinformation. It could just be part of their agenda, right? So I always want to look at it and see, what is the motive? What could they be trying to get at here? What do they want me to believe? So during this time last year, I was in an abduction experience. I was taken to a giant ship by a demon, by the way, a low-level demon. And I was standing at a hole. I called it a tunnel slide. Very difficult to explain, but they have these energy tunnels, these energy tubes. They're very similar to the tubes that you see at a pharmacy or at a bank, where they're sending things down the tubes and they can arrive at the other end, but they're made of energy. This tube is coated in a white foam. I know, strange detail, but then I come to find out later there's something called quantum foam. I ended up seeing it later on Twitter. And there is just a line of humans who are in zombie mode. And almost anytime I see other abductees on these ships, they're humans, they're in zombie mode. They're just completely tuned out. They have no idea what's going on. And they are walking toward this tunnel. And it's a tunnel. You have to jump into the tunnel, and then it's almost like a slide. You jump into the tunnel and it slides off into the universe somewhere. And they're just all zombied out. They're all jumping into this tunnel. And this demon is trying to get me to jump into the tunnel. And it's very strange because he never pushed me into the tunnel. It was something I had to choose. It was some type of weird permission. They're always looking for consent and permission for whatever reason. And I stood there at the tunnel and I just said, "Well, why would I jump into, why would I do that? I'm not doing that. Why would I jump into a tunnel?" And they're all just jumping and jumping and jumping in. And I knew in that moment that there was something very serious going on, that this was not just a tunnel slide, that this was something very profound, and that something very profound was happening. It's a longer story, but I end up realizing that what I believe I'm seeing is part of this recycling process. Now, do they want me to believe this? And this is why I'm seeing it, because they're very manipulative. They can control our perception. Everyone has to know that right off the bat. I should have said that right off the bat. Or is this real? And, why are they trying to get me to jump into this tunnel slide? And so I start realizing that these are human souls and they're being sent somewhere. I don't know where. But my overall knowing is that this is part of this recycling process where these souls are just jumping into the tunnel and they're going off into who knows where. Why they're trying to get me to jump in the tunnel. And they tried to trick me a couple of times in a couple of different ways. I talked to a researcher about it later, and she said, "I do not even know what would have happened to you if you had jumped into that tunnel," because it was almost a voluntary death type thing, which they've done to me a few times. Separate from that, maybe several weeks later, it might have even been a couple months later, I get one of these Dropbox downloads. And I am told, and this is not words, I'm told, or I now have the knowing, that these beings are sucking up human souls in some of these ships. They're harvesting souls. They're getting some type of energy from our souls because they don't have any, and that they're harvesting souls. And this is the dark part, Tony. This is the part that just almost destroyed me. And now coupling that with some of the near-death experience research, when you start seeing that some people have seen graves, it's just a big picture. I can lighten it up a little bit. I've also gotten Dropbox downloads on Christ. So there's that. That's probably actually what probably saved me from this. So yeah, where was I going with that? It's the ultimate soul trap. It's a soul trap is what it is. That's her
You
agenda.
heard of Donald Marshall?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It makes Donald sound like he's loopy, right? He's not loopy. Okay. What Donald's talking about is as real as it gets. Okay. And so he's talking about something called an REM clone.
Mhm.
And that's the REM. What does that stand for again? Do you remember?
It's the REM
Rapid eye movement.
Yeah.
Rapid eye movement. Thank you. And so there's a point when you're going to sleep, you lay down and you start relaxing, but there's a point when you cross over to REM. And as soon as that happens, apparently what they're doing is pulling the astral body from the individual. Now, you can have an astral experience with them. They can be present in that, but there's also something else occurring, which is somehow, I'm just going to come out and say it. There's another body, a clone body, in a facility somewhere, in a location somewhere, and this astral body consciousness can be pulled into this other individual. So you're still physically laying in bed, We know that the astral body leaves at night anyway. It's actually designed to leave to rejuvenate us. Actually, we interact, believe it or not, we interact with an angel, and there's an interaction that takes place, and there's a rejuvenation before you come back and wake up in the morning. They're interfering with this. They're interfering with our ability to rejuvenate. They're interfering with our ability to engage with the higher hierarchies. So they're pulling people, and for a variety of reasons and a variety of things that they're having that person do. Some people, like Donald Marshall, of course, is going to cloning facilities. It's this bizarre, disgusting, horrific form of entertainment. They can kill your clone. Your astral body can come back to your original body, so on and so forth. But there's another thing happening. And you might want to talk to this person. It's a friend of mine, Ron Allen, who has wrote his book, 21st Century MK Ultra Slave, A Vintage Transhumanist Tale. He is aware of what's happening to him. His ability to stop this or halt it. You know, we talk about sovereignty and taking responsibility, but again, I want to go back to MK Ultra slaves don't have a choice at a certain point. Okay. What they've done to him, they took him for 10 days as soon as he was born. He was in a military hospital. They've done something that is making it almost impossible for him to engage his will to be able to extract himself from this. And so in most cases, you know, in a lot of cases, this has become an issue with a friend of mine, Alana Freeland. We've talked about this a lot, that the new technologies, we're not exactly sure how you get out. The way I got out, the way a lot of people like me did, who can, who can't, what technologies, what processes and systems they're using on you. I think we're in a new zone right now. We're on the front line of this, and there's still a lot of the information and understanding is missing. But this man is pretty much 24/7 every night. He knows when it's happening. He tries to stop it. He tries not to go to sleep, you know, that kind of thing. But they're very successful with him. And there's, let's think of it as kind of a form of virtual porn. He's not a young man. Apparently they really like him and aspects of his body. And there's like all these people come into his mind that are taking advantage of this. Some of them are remote. Many of them are physically present. They actually come in. He's living in his camper, and they come in and are physically present. They come into the camper often, where he's already out far enough, but he knows that they're coming in, and then he's gone. I mean, it's absolutely stunning what is happening to this man. And there's a lot more to his story, things that we don't understand, no matter how much we talk about it. Or so we're still trying to figure out how they're doing this, what makes it, what makes it so that he's been so targeted for this that literally it's almost impossible for him to get out. Now, he was targeted in his youth. He was definitely brought through his whole family. He had a brother who is no more. And it was going on with his brother. And then when his brother passed, it kind of fell onto him full force. So as far as how they're doing it, I really couldn't explain the technology. The fact that they are doing it is, there's no question with. And I've now met another radio host who actually was on many years ago, a decade ago, early deprogramming. And I reconnected with him. We've been on a couple of times, and he's having this happen. He doesn't even do video anymore. He just does podcasts. He says he has scars from it's transferring back to his physical body. And he just doesn't, he just can't even comprehend what is really taking place and how this has been happening. He says it's not happening as much anymore, but he went through a period where literally, he'd wake up on the floor next to the bed, face down, blood all over, his nose all busted up.
Oh, wow.
I mean, there's crazy stuff. Now, this other guy isn't having that happen. He's having physical reactions, mainly in the erection, that kind of thing. But
Oh.
he's not getting beat up or any of this. It seems to be very, very much sexually oriented, and perversions of normal sexual behavior.
And that's a key aspect of all this is, the beta programming or the sexual programming. There's the alpha, beta, and delta programming, but
this is like, he's not in control of this. He does have alters. I believe because of his history, he does have alters. He has memories of, like peripheral memories of some of the things he's done. But this is, I believe this is going on through the dark net, and that you can subscribe to stuff like this. You pay and you can subscribe and become a participant. From the stories he's told, some of them seem like one-timers that just are curious and then they're gone. A couple of them have gotten very upset about what's taking place and left. But he's got a whole barrage of people that follow him. He came here and visited me 2 years ago. And we only went out in my car once, and I had somebody in a truck on my tail, like way too close, following us where we went. So he's not only dealing with this insane astral remote aspect, he's got physical people around him,
Right.
sometimes waiting for him when he pulls his camper into place. They're already there. So
Yeah.
they know everything. There's no freedom. There's no,
And
it's crazy.
Yeah, and like just how they're pulling it off, like you said, who knows? But they do have these astral capabilities to come in and influence you that way. And it's so lucid, like you said, it affects your daily life because you actually take action on it. You're like, wow, like this is actually happening to me. And that's not to say that like a lucid dream can't be a positive experience either. I'm not like taking that away from. Not every single thing is negative, but I like that you brought up the cloning technology involved. This is something we talk about often, and it's very prominent. I mean, on the world stage right now, even in politics and the political arena, who's really running the show here? We have to start asking ourselves, like, how much of this is like a movie that we're watching? This whole these UFOs being shot down and everything. They want us to see that. They're creating this narrative for us for a reason. The cloning aspect of it. So whenever you have been taken, you think that's what happens? They take your consciousness and put it into a clone body, or did they use your physical body and you just have missing time?
I really didn't become aware of this. Again, I didn't have the terminology. I called them pulls, P-U-L-L-S. And I remember going to my friend Alana and saying, I'm going through this series of things. When I hit a certain place of trying to go to sleep, I start to vibrate. I mean, extensively.
Oh my God, that you have no idea how many times that's happened to me, but go ahead, continue.
And I think this is a part of the astral starting to leave. And I think it can even happen in a natural state. We're just not aware. We're too far into relaxation. But what would happen because of what was happening to me, I would jerk out of it sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I could feel, the vibration, but now I was awake. So I'm sure there were many times that I didn't pull out and didn't awaken, and the process took place. And this was in deep programming that I began to see this. And I began to understand as I experienced it more consciously that this had happened in my past, and I couldn't explain, what was taking place. I didn't have the right terminology. So there was one particular very lucid experience where I was pulled. And the reason I went to her, I mean, this is pre-Ron Allen, pre-understanding any of this. I went to my friend and I said, okay, here's the deal. My body's in bed. If anybody comes in the room, my body's still in bed. It looks like I'm sleeping. But I've been pulled out of my body. And I said, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's my astral. I don't know what it is. I'm pulled out. But I'm not having an otherworldly astral experience in the supersensible world. I'm in a facility, in a body, and I'm interacting, and they're interacting with me. They can see me. They're physical people seeing me, and we're interacting, and there's things taking place. And when I said this to her, she sent me an article from an Australian woman, and I can forward that to you. This was in the mid-90s. Her name was Deva. I forget her last name. And a group of, I believe they were Christian scientists, went in to study her. She was a multiple personality. And this was taking place with her. And they didn't know how to classify it, but they studied her for quite a long time, and they would interact with her before. They would sit there and watch her sitting in the chair at night, asleep. And she'd come back from the facility with more alters that they had already integrated. So they did this study, and they wrote this paper, and even had a diagram, and they were involving the soul and the spirit and how this was working through technology. We believe she was being pulled to Pine Gap. And so this was the mid-90s that these guys wrote this paper.
Right.
And it's evolved even more now. So in my case, I didn't have the language, but I knew it wasn't just my astral body working in the supersensible realm. I knew I was in a physical body. And then I realized that had happened when I started to understand it. That had happened in my past once or twice, where I was being utilized in a body, but there was no way I could have physically been in that location. It happened at night.
Yes.
So it started to make sense. And now with Ron's story, he's one of the few that's come out. And I'd like to encourage more and more men to start talking about their mind control experiences, because it's really dominated by us women right now. And it's important. It's important for the whole consciousness that the men start coming forward. I can't really explain why, but I know that this is the time it's going to help change things if men start talking. So I encourage you, Tyler, to talk about your experiences. So I thought they were pulls. They don't happen anymore. I'm having astral experiences, and some of them I'm definitely in control of where I'm going and what I'm doing in my astral experiences. So part of that taking back my soul forces is providing the sovereignty that even in the astral, I can determine if this is me or if somebody's trying to mess with me. Mm-hmm. So it can be done. It can be done, but I don't want to make it sound like if someone can't get out, that they should get out, because there are so many variables and the technologies are not fully understood. But I do recommend Alana Freeland's book if you haven't come across it yet. If you want to understand this stuff, her latest book, she has 3 in a series, but her latest one is Geoengineered Transhumanism. And then there's a subtitle. And she will provide you with the facts. And I mean, the book is like this thick. It's loaded with information if people really want to start trying to understand where this started, where it's gotten to, as far as what we can document, and that's like this patent list. I will happily send this to you. You can link it to the show for people to get in there and understand. This is not supposition. This is not some conspiracy theory. This is real.